Yo, hi Duffy. Thanks for hanging out with me to do a chat on your work here.
Totally. Happy to be
Uh,
here.
yeah, could you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, my name is Jeff Duffy. I am a contributor at Subspace. I have been for pretty much since the beginning. I came in December of 2017, and I believe y'all signed the lease in October. So I was pretty early on member. I was there before our first event, before we ever were open to the public. So yeah, predominantly a woodworker, carpenter. I do some resin art. I do some sculpting. I do kind of a mixed batch of lots of different things.
Oh,
My collage.
yeah. Are you often doing stuff like this, or maybe you're putting together pieces, but not usually like this, like collage?
Yeah, like a lot of my work is like the carpentry I do is if you've ever seen it or if you haven't, is I do a lot of salvage stuff, and so I do a lot of patchwork, putting pieces together to make bigger pieces to create whatever it is that I make into, like slabs of wood into other things, shelves, bookshelves, tables.
Right. Yep. I've definitely seen them, and like chessboards.
Chessboards. I also do like some two-dimensional panel work where I'll make edge-bearing panels either vertically or horizontally, and then I'll put routs in them and pour different colors of resins into them.
Cool.
And like, yeah, beautiful stuff. Wood burning. Yeah.
And so you're with me as part of Subspace. So what did you think of when Ellery brought this idea to the group?
I really, really liked the idea. I really liked where Ellery went with it. I had previously proposed a community collage event, is kind of what we were calling it at that point. If you remember talking about that plan, we were gonna do we were gonna have some featured artists. Alan Loosebrock from Nashville is a buddy of Sean and I's, and he was gonna have some stuff hung in the gallery. We were gonna do small collages, and then we were also talking about doing. We were gonna print a cityscape, like the downtown, with a mountain in the background, and like we were gonna do a whole thing, and then let people collage on top of that background is originally kind of what we had talked about. So I was all for when Ellery brought up cutting up 2020. I was all for it. I really liked her concept. Like she had the resources working for the library and was able to bring the packets of magazines to the table. And I thought it was a really, really good idea.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that Ellery got to get these magazines out to so many people, but also glad some of us in Subspace got to do it. Kind of like a way for us to yeah, get in on a project together.
Totally, totally. I love the community collaboration aspect of it, right? For all of us to be able to do something that outside people are doing, and we get to feature members, to hang stuff in the gallery that's not necessarily members, right? It's like it's cool. I've always been into that idea.
And did you get a packet of magazines, or did you how right? Did you picked it up from Subspace?
Ellery dropped my packet in my space one day, but yeah, I totally got a standard packet the way everybody got them, with the black piece of construction paper, and I
Yep.
think it was 4 or 5 magazines.
Yeah. Any weird material like a magazine that you never seen?
So I had never really ventured into People magazine.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it was I don't know. I didn't personally find much material in the People magazines. I thought they were kind of like, okay, well, this is a thing. I guess this is it's for somebody. It's not for me. But I found a lot of what I pulled. I think came out of Time magazine,
Mhm.
right? And I had a Mad magazine it was just interesting. I hadn't seen a Mad magazine in a long time, since I was a kid, probably, and it was just fun to read the Mad magazine and get back in there. But I didn't find too much in there. I don't think that I actually used. really like the majority of what I pulled, like what ended up in my collage, came out of the Time magazine.
Yeah. And so how did you approach this? Right. I see a lot of 2020, which is exactly what the like Ellery wanted it to be about. What did you, how did you approach getting everything on the paper?
Yeah, so the way I did it, my approach to it was I actually captured some time lapses of me working on it for future, edit like videos, promotional stuff. But my thought process was I really wanted to stick with what I was given, right? I felt like kind of the spirit of the project was to stick with the packet that you had, to not deviate too much from it. And so I went through each of my magazines, kind of like earmarked pages that I found interesting points in, or like maybe an interesting caption, or a thing that I thought was super relevant to 2020, like a thing that, there were certain parts of 2020 that really captured our collective attention. It'd be hard to deny, like you can see Breonna Taylor's in there, and like there were things that came up in society that were like undeniable. And so obviously those things were going to make it in there. Yeah, and I did like an initial paging through where I looked at and saw what I wanted to see. And then like I kind of went back and cut everything out. Like I cut everything out, like the things that I chose. Doing the collage game, cutting stuff out, I had to do this back and forth jump. You got to look at the back side of the page to make sure you're not cutting up something you'd rather have to get what's on the front side, And so like kind of playing that balancing game, cruising through. I got a whole envelope. I cut out the things initially that caught my interest, and I stuffed them in an envelope. And then I sat back down with my envelope and my paper, and I just kind of like moved stuff around on the page. I kind of like shuffled it around, like reflected on the year a little bit. I read things. You can see like some things I cut up into strips, and some things I made into smaller portions. And yeah, it was really it was more of that patchwork kind of mentality that I have, like that I bring to my woodworking, right? Of like taking lots of different pieces. I did kind of like a right and a left thing, right? Like,
Yeah, are there certain details that you're seeing now that it's been a month since you did it? Like, what do you see in it that really sticks out?
yeah, like it's funny, I ended up putting like the Trump side on the left and the more left leaning side on the right. I didn't realize until now looking at it like front on, but like you can see, so there's this Trump supporter on the left who's kind of done up like a Captain America, Captain Trump crossover kind of deal, right? And that individual is actually from Arizona. They are from Scottsdale, I believe, or Tempe, or like one of the suburbs of the capital.
Mm-hmm.
And they are like all over. If you actually do a little bit of Googling, you can find quite a bit of information on them. They're pretty active in the like Stop the Steal stuff, and you know, obviously some of this is the way that I perceive things. I'm sure there are people out there that perceive things slightly differently than I do, but like, you got some Proud Boys who had captured the public eye in 2020. You got like, obviously COVID was so huge. COVID still is affecting our lives, and there are people, I got some COVID deniers going on down there.
You got him in there?
We're over here. You got Dogface sneaking in there. You can't, I mean, he was a force in 2020. I had the opportunity to throw him in. I wasn't missing it,
Yeah, and the USPS over here.
Yeah, the Postal Service was huge in the election. I felt like, that was a thing to bring in. I mail my ballot in. I'm on the early voting list. I had lots of discussions with my coworkers, actually. I work in the energy sector, and I had been paired up last year with some dudes who I predominantly work in wind, and I had ended up paired up with some guys who work in oil and gas more. And we had some really interesting conversations about mail-in ballot. I had a guy tell me, you shouldn't be allowed to send in your ballot. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do, man? Like, I'm in South Dakota right now. I've been here for 8 weeks. My ballot's due. I filled it out in South Dakota and sent it home, you know, and he's like, well, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. And I'm like, what? Like, am I supposed to give it to the polling people here in South Dakota and then they figure it out? And he said, well, that wouldn't work either because, and then, you know, he ended up talking circles around himself. Like he couldn't,
Yeah.
he didn't have an answer other than it was just unacceptable, you know? And I'm like, well, how are you going to vote, dude? You're not going to be home. How are you going to do it? You know? And that he really started to think after that. We had some pretty in-depth conversations on that at work.
Well, that's good.
So,
I think, I'm, because I've known you for how many years, though, yeah, those conversations are, you know, like piece by piece. We try to get people to like a reasonable solution.
Right. I hope, you know, you took something away from that conversation, that guy that I was speaking to that day, hopefully.
Yeah.
You know, he's not, yeah, you get hung up on one thing like that. You can't, that guy is not an unreasonable guy in other aspects of his life. You know what I mean? You know, there's just one particular thing. He's like, oh, I don't know about this. And it's like, well, if you don't know, like, let's talk about it. This is how I feel about it, you know? And like,
that's true. Yeah.
Totally.
And so is there, I don't know, you think you're going to do more collage work, or what do you think Ellery should bring up for the next collage round?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do the next round of collage. I enjoyed this project a lot. I hadn't probably done a collage since like freshman year of high school. It was the last time that I could like definitely constructively remember sitting down and making a collage. And so I really enjoyed it. I did this one in kind of a rush, but I'm still pretty happy with the way it turned out. And I wouldn't mind having some more time to throw, you know, to throw at the project. I've seen other people's that I thought are like really, like Alan from Nashville, and I can't remember his name. Is Ellery's partner named Zach, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, his were beautiful. Like he did his perspective, you know, mine's really choppy and patchwork and thrown together, and his had like a broader, I want to say, like he fit things together that weren't initially in each other's photos, right? And the way that they came together, it was artistic in a way that I don't think mine captured, right? And I would like to try and get in on some of that, like try to learn that, and like maybe kind of a less is more thing, right? Like,
yeah, I definitely, I felt like it was my first time, and so I definitely want a few more tries at it.
Right. Like Sean's, I thought Sean's was amazing. Sean did the thing where he had the vulture and the feathers were made out of different clips, right? And it was awesome. You know, I'd like to do I think I'm going to work on like kind of more that style of interpretation in my next one, perhaps.
Yeah, I'll message him and get him to speak on his collage.
Totally.
Well, I don't know, anything else you can think of to mention?
No. It speaks for itself, I think.
Yeah.
Not like everything. I felt like it made me think of my 2020. You know what I mean? It was, if we were trying to capture 2020 in a collage, I think this kind of did it for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a wild year, wasn't it?
Yeah. And maybe sometimes we don't get enough time to reflect or slow down when it's happening to us. That makes sense. Yeah, that I can't appreciate how unique last year was, in that a situation like that might not have existed for the last 100 years, or ever since the flu from the early 20th century.
Sure. Even yesterday I was reflecting, I was like, man, we survived a global pandemic. After the meeting yesterday, I was sitting downstairs as I was like walking stuff up at the space. I thought, man, we all survived I know people that are no longer with us, people that were my age, people who had been athletes at the university and were not on the poverty line, right? People that had like pretty privileged upbringings, and they got COVID and died, man. And it's like we survived like a real thing, and it's crazy. It's almost life doesn't stop, you know what I mean? So it's to your point of like not really being able to take the time to reflect and be like, holy shit, this was real. I know it seems like it was yesterday and we're through it, or if that's even the case, if you can ever really be through it or whatever, you know, but like, yeah, I think maybe every individual taking the time to process and realize what it really was, or like to understand what it was for you, is like maybe still necessary, you know, because I don't think I've really done that, you know. And as things, it still blows my mind, like as things become more and more lax, we were kind of talking about it yesterday, like having gone into Circle K for the first time without a mask on and being like a little dazed about it, you know, like looking around and feeling like, you know, you're not sure you're doing the right thing or whatever. It's like, how long are we out of this thing? How long is it going to take for you to feel comfortable again? Like it's unbroken ground, as it were, you know what I mean? Like it's still a thing we're living in. It's weird.
Well, Duffy, thanks for the time, and it's good to see your collage in the way that you put it together.
Totally, man. Thanks for the interview, thanks for the time, and yeah, appreciate you, man.
All right, bye.
See you later.